Hey guys, today we are going to be working on Module 5, Week 2, Day 8, and we are going to be doing the EdPuzzle and then a little bit different today. The EdPuzzle will be a little bit longer today, so I wanted to just give you two assignments to work on. So one of them will be to do the vocabulary page, and then the second one is going to be to do a retell for the story that we're going to be reading during this lesson. So I have specific things that I'm looking for in the retell. So as we're talking about this story and reading the story, you need to be thinking about the characters, the setting, the problem, those events that are leading up to the problem, and then the solution or the resolution. Those are the things that I'm going to be asking to see in the video retell. So your objective for today is I can use a variety of reading strategies I've learned to deeply understand a new text. So we have a new text, we're using those strategies that we've been working on all year long. So how will you be successful? I will identify the characters, setting, problem, and the plot. I will identify key elements and illustrations. I will make connections to past experiences, and I will answer questions by locating evidence in the text or illustrations. So we're going to be doing a lot when we are reading. Good readers don't just read for one skill, they are looking at all of the skills, and so we're working on pulling all of those pieces together as we read. So one of the things that we've been doing is monitor and clarify. So as we're reading, we come to unfamiliar words or we lose understanding during a tricky paragraph. And we can't just keep reading. We really need to understand those things. So we have to ask ourselves, do I understand this? If you say yes, then keep reading. Go on. Like if you really understand what you're reading, there's no reason to pause and go back. But if you are struggling and you're not remembering or you're not understanding a word or a section, then you're going to need to do some things. You're going to go back to what you're reading and try to decode those difficult words. Look for context clues. So look for things around that word that you're struggling with to see if it can help you determine what the meaning of that word is. Maybe try replacing it with another word if you're not sure. And then you could always look it up in the dictionary or the glossary. If you've come to like a section or a paragraph where you're not really sure what's going on, you're confused, you can make notes about what confuses you, think about what you know about your own personal experience, what you already know, but then what you've already read. Go back and reread and look for details that maybe you missed, and then look at the images in the text. So we're really going to be focusing on understanding what we're reading. In your book, page 398, you're going to see the beginning of our new book called Running Rivals. And this is a realistic fiction, which means that the characters or the story's made up. It's fiction, so it's a made-up story, but the characters and the events could really happen. That's the realistic part. So in this story is about Amy, who competes in track events. The girl has to solve a problem, and learns an important lesson about teamwork and competition. The story has a number of realistic settings that we might find familiar. So as we're getting ready to read this, I want you guys to turn in your book again to page 398, and you're going to tell me, what do you know about track? What do you want to know about track? So you're going to type in the box and write in your book, what is it that you know about track? If you don't know anything about track, you can say, I don't know anything. Maybe you want to learn what is track, and that could be your question. All right, so just a little bit of information, track running. No one knows when the first foot race took place, but at some point, the idea of running competitions took hold. Track running was the only event in the first Olympic Games held in Greece in 776 BC. At that time, only males could compete. Today, modern track events are for everyone. Races at outdoor track cover distances between 100 and 10,000 meters. Relay races involve teams of 4 runners. Each team member carries a baton for a distance, then passes it on to the next runner. So just in that little bit, did you learn a little bit more about track? All right. We are going to be reading the story, so you can follow along or watch the screen. And as we're reading it, I want you to be thinking about the main conflict or problem in the story.
Bouncing back. My name is Amy Reed, and I was one of the top 2 track stars in the district. My biggest competition was Madison Palmer. During the last race of the season, I hurt my knee in a race against Madison, and I've been out for all of this track season. Finally, my doctor gave me permission to start running again, just in time for our last 2 track meets. I was very nervous about whether or not my knee was actually healed. It didn't help when I saw Madison training one day and I heard her coach say she had run the lap in 1 minute and 5 seconds. That is faster than I could run the 400-meter dash when I was at my best. I trained and practiced all weekend, but after trying my best at the first meet, I still came in 3rd place. I had run my slowest race ever and wondered how I'd be ready for the race against Madison just 3 days later. I went home and rushed right to my room. Almost immediately, my dad knocked on the door and asked me to come to the kitchen. Dad looked at me. We were both quiet for a long time. Finally, before I could change my mind, I told him everything. I told him about my first thoughts of nervousness, about worrying about my knee, about seeing Madison in the park, about my false starts, and finally, about my really huge fear that I wouldn't be ready for Friday's meet. It was the final meet of the year. It was a really big deal. Meets. When swimmers or runners take part in races, the event is called a meet.
All right, so you can't see it at the bottom, but remember, our vocabulary words are going to be at the bottom to help you to understand what those words are. This will be important when you do your vocabulary as your next assignment. So as I'm looking, I want to see where the main conflict or problem is in the story, and I want to be able to find it as I'm reading. And in the text, I want you guys to underline where you think this is. You should have highlighted right here something about, I told my dad, my first thoughts of nervousness, about worrying about my knee, about seeing Madison in the park, about my false starts, and finally about my really big fear. And she's afraid that she won't be ready for today's meet. Again, I can't see it because of my my little boxes down here. It was the final meet of the year, and it was a really big deal, is what she's saying. So, what is the main problem? You should have said that the main problem is Amy is nervous and worried about running in the meet. She was afraid she wouldn't be ready. So that's the main problem for Amy right now. She's really worried about this. We know that when we're talking about our story elements, we have the characters in the setting and then the problem in the beginning. Just on this first page, we have found the problem. All right, we're going to continue reading in our book. Let me get to the page.
Madison has had 2 months of practice more than me, I finished. She's been running faster than I've ever run. Today I tried as hard as I could and ran slower than ever. Dad looked at me for a few seconds. He seemed to be thinking hard. Have you talked to Coach Joseph about any of this? He asked finally. Dad, I haven't talked to anyone about any of this, I said. Oh, honey, I don't know what to tell you, Dad said with a sigh. All you can do is your best. And you still have Friday's meet, right? I'm sure your slow run tonight was just you being nervous. Plus, you're still getting back into shape. Yeah, I said. My dad didn't seem to understand how upset I was. I needed to talk to Natalie. My sister was always really good at solving problems. Dad? I asked. I need to talk to Natalie, I said. No offense or anything, I added quickly. I understand, Amy. I'll go get her for you, Dad said as he stood up. He even looked a little relieved. Soon, my sister walked into the kitchen. Okay, Amy, Natalie said, sitting down next to me. Dad told me everything, and I have an idea. She took a deep breath. Then she went on. Why don't you go to the track in the park and talk to Madison? Maybe you can practice with her or something. That wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Are you kidding? I asked. No, I'm not. She's just a girl who likes to run, like you are, said Natalie. I sat for a few seconds to let the idea sink in. Will you come with me? I asked finally. Yeah, she said. Then she smiled. I'm not running, though. I laughed. Deal, I said. We'll go tomorrow after dinner. Upset. If you are upset, you are sad or unhappy about something.
So again, we have another vocabulary word, upset. The definition's at the bottom. So you're sad or unhappy about something. So as we read this page, we were kind of looking for how was Amy's problem similar to Burke's problem in the soccer shootout. So if you remember last week, we read soccer shootout, and Burke and the other boy were trying out for the goalie position, and Burke was really excited he wanted that position, but the other player maybe was a little bit better. And so in both of these stories, they have something in common. They are both trying to beat somebody else. So the main characters are worrying about someone being better than them. Amy is worried about Madison beating her, and Burke is worried about the other boy taking his position. So in both stories, the characters are worried about how well they're going to perform. All right, next we're going to be focusing on the image of the fence, help you to understand how it helps you to understand Amy and Madison's relationship. So we're going to be looking at not only the words, but the pictures that are on this page.
My biggest competition. The next day, Natalie picked me up after practice. Are you ready for tonight? She asked. No, I said. Amy, exclaimed Natalie. We talked about this yesterday. Did you change your mind? No, I said again. Madison just makes me really nervous. She always wins. I bet she's just as impressed by you, said Natalie. But I didn't think so. After dinner, I put on my running clothes. 10 minutes later, Natalie and I were heading for the track. As soon as we reached the track, I saw Madison. She was sprinting through the last 100 meters of a lap. I started to turn around, but Natalie held on to my elbow and guided me toward the track. Madison stopped running as we walked up. She squinted at us through the fence. Amy Reed, is that you? She asked. Yeah, I said, surprised. How do you know my name? Madison laughed. Because you're my biggest competition, she said. What are you doing here? Well, I live near here, I told her. This is my sister, Natalie. Natalie and Madison smiled at each other. I took a deep breath and went on. So anyway, I was running near the track last week and saw you practicing. I looked at my sister for help. Amy had a rough meet last night. I suggested she come to ask you for some advice, Natalie said. I mean, I know you're on different teams and everything, but... She stopped. Madison had started to blush. Are you kidding? Asked Madison. I should ask Amy for advice. I was shocked. About what? I asked. Your form, Madison said. Your form is always so perfect. Then Natalie said, if you two are going to practice, you should really get started. Madison and I went to the starting line. We decided to run the first lap in our own styles so that we could see the differences side by side.
All right, so as we are looking at this question, how does the image of the fence help you understand Madison and Amy's relationship? So we have a couple choices. A, it shows that they don't like each other. B, it shows that they are on different teams. C, it shows that they are too different to work together. Or D, it shows that they are on the same side. You should have answered, it shows that they are on different teams. So the girls are kind of on opposite sides of the fence. Madison is working on her own, and the girls walk up. And so they're talking to each other through the fence, and it shows that they're on two different teams. All right, as we're reading this now, I want you to think about this question. What does the illustration help you to see about Madison and Amy? So what does the illustration help you see about Madison and Amy?
We were really close for the first half, but I was in the lead. I noticed that Madison's elbows seemed to fly out from her body a little. It was almost as if she was having trouble keeping her arms in close like you're supposed to. We went around the second turn. That's when Madison sped up. I tried to keep up with her, but I was out of energy. Plus, my knee was bugging me again. Madison beat me by about 2 meters. That's a lot in such a short race. After we caught our breath, I asked, "What's your secret?" I used to try to sprint the whole thing, but I was always so wiped out by the end. My coach suggested I try it a different way, Madison explained. If you run a little slower than normal for the first half of the race, you can speed up for the second half and pass everyone. She shrugged. It works really well. I thought for a minute. Okay, I said, let's run it again. This time I'll try it your way.
So the question, how does the illustration help you see, or what does the illustration help you see about Amy and Madison? So does it show that Madison is a better runner? Does it show that Amy is a better runner? Does it show that they have similar running abilities? Or does it show that they both have problems with their running? You should have picked that it shows that they both have problems with their running. As you can see, Madison and Amy are both running, and in the text we know that Amy was saying how Madison seems to fly out, her elbows seem to fly out her body a little, as though she's having trouble keeping her arms closed like you're supposed to. But then later we also see that Madison gives her some suggestion and says, if you slow down than the normal for half of the race, you can speed up the second half and pass everyone. So they both have a little bit of their own problems while they're reading. As we continue to read, I want you to be thinking about this. Why does Amy feel happier now than she has in days? So think about why Amy is happier now.
We ran another lap. That time, I actually beat her. After we cooled down a little, I gave Madison some tips on keeping her elbows in close to her body. See, I just pretend I'm one of those ski machines, you know? I told her, like on TV. It takes some getting used to, but keeping your elbows in really makes a difference. Finally, I noticed that the sun was below the trees, so we decided to call it a night. See you Friday, called Madison as Natalie and I headed back down the trail toward home. See you then, I yelled back. I felt happier than I had in days.
All right, I want you to think about this page at the very end. Amy says, I felt happier than I had in days. So why does Amy feel happier now than she had in days? I want you to type in your answer. You should have said something about she's gained her confidence back and she knows that she can beat Madison in the race on Friday. We know that she was really worried about going up against Madison, but I think as they were training together, they kind of learned that each of them has their own things that they could improve on. And so now with Madison's help, Amy has improved on her running. And so there's a chance that she could beat Madison in the race on Friday. All right. On this page, we're going to be looking at what new method does Amy use in this race? How does it help her?
Best. Friday morning was chilly and sunny, but by the time we changed and boarded the bus to drive to the meet, the sky had clouded over, the wind had picked up, and the rain was coming down in sheets. The drive to Emeryville didn't take long, but it felt like forever. The rain had let up a little by the time we got there, but the wind was still blowing. To make matters worse, it seemed like the rain and cold were making my knees stiff. Soon, we arrived at the school. Little butterflies started to form in my stomach. I was so nervous. This meet was a really important meet. Anyone who finished first or second in their event would compete in the state finals. I took my position in the lane. Madison was right next to me in lane 2. We smiled at each other. On your marks! I crouched down and faced forward. Get set! I pushed my toe as close as I could to the starting line without actually touching it. Bang! The starting gun went off. I concentrated all of my thoughts and effort on keeping up with Madison. When we hit the second curve, Madison put on a burst of speed. I was surprised to find myself right next to her. I was using Madison's method for running. So far, it was making a big difference. We were neck and neck. My knee hurt a little, but I ignored it. Then Madison pulled ahead. I pulled ahead of her for a few meters, but I couldn't keep my lead. Concentrated. If you have concentrated on something, you have focused all your thoughts on it. Suddenly,
All right, looking back at the story and the question, what new method does Amy use in this race? How does this help her? So in this story, I can find where she is keeping up with Madison, and then when they hit the second curve, Madison put on a burst of speed. I surprised myself and was right next to her. So she also sped up at the end. I was using Madison's method right here. So she's using Madison's method as it was making a big difference. We were neck and neck. My knee hurt a little, but I ignored it. Then Madison pulled ahead. I pulled ahead of her for a few meters, but I couldn't keep my lead. So what new method does Amy use in this race? You should have said that she's using Madison's technique. or method of running a little bit slower in the beginning than using her energy to run harder at the end. It helps her keep up with Madison, and she is able to pull ahead of her for a little bit. All right, looking at the kind of final pages and the final question for this story, what is the theme of the story? We're going to use some details from the text to support our answer and looking for the theme. Remember, the theme is, what is it that the author wanted you to learn from this? What did the author want you to learn from this?
It was over. Madison had won. For a second, I felt really disappointed. Yet again, Madison Palmer had beaten me. But then Katie, my training partner, came running over. "Amy," she called, sounding excited. "You ran a 105. "Are you serious?" I asked. I felt shocked. That was my fastest time ever. Did I really? I couldn't believe it. How had I run a 105 with a healing knee? "Yeah, you really did," a girl's voice said. I turned around. It was Madison. "Congratulations," I told her. "You were great." Disappointed. If you are disappointed, you are sad that something didn't happen the way you wanted it to. Madison smiled. "You were too. Personal best, right? Your best time ever?" she asked. "That's got to feel great." I smiled back. "Yes, it was," I admitted. "It feels pretty good." Madison laughed. "Wait till the next meet," she said. "You wait till the next meet," I joked. "Then my knee will be totally healed, and I'll be some serious competition." Everyone cheered as the official read our times into a microphone. I could see my dad and Natalie in the stands jumping up and down. "You already are serious competition," Madison said, smiling. "I can't wait till the next meet." Personal. If something is personal, it is connected to and only about one person.
So, after reading the entire story, what is the theme of this story? What details can you pull from the story to help you? You should have answered that the theme of the story could be about working hard and doing your best. Even though Amy was hurt, she still worked hard to get better at running. Even though she didn't beat Madison, she did get a personal best and improve her running. So working hard and doing your best will help you to improve and help you to be the best person that you could be. With theme, you can always apply this to other parts of your life. Maybe you're not a track runner, but maybe there is something else that you are working towards as a goal and you want to get there. And so this can be a reminder to push yourself a little bit further, to work a little bit harder to get to that goal. All right, so going back to the beginning, what do you know about track and what do you want to know? Was there something that you learned new? Something new that you learned today? And then the final question, why did the author most likely write Running Rivals? Was it to share an entertaining story? Was it to teach an important lesson about teamwork? Was it to make readers want to learn to run? Or was it to give information about track? You should have said to teach an important lesson about teamwork. So this one was all about teamwork, working together to get better at something, and the girls really worked together to improve their running. You also could have said to share an entertaining story. I think that this is an entertaining story. We're not really learning anything, or they are not trying to persuade you to become a runner, but you are getting an entertaining story. Okay, so for the retell you're going to be doing on Flipgrid, here are the things that you're going to need to do. You're going to be recording a video retelling the story that we just read, and these are the things that I'm looking for. I want it to be at least 1 minute long. and I want to make sure that I can see your face. You are going to include these key elements of a story. You need the characters, the setting, the problem, the events, and then the resolution or the solution. And then finally, I want you to tell me what you thought of the story. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Tell me why you liked it or you didn't like it. You will have your vocabulary to do as well, and I will see you in your small groups.